So Moses and the prophets talked about the scattering and the regathering of all Israel, and that the scattering of Israel would be done by land and by sea, and it would be excruciating and slow. The regathering of Israel will be done by air travel. It is written in several different places. Yet Darby and Schofield did not understand. This is the reason why the rapture theory came, because there was no air travel in the days of Schofield and Darby. Unfortunately, people have not adjusted their views with the times. They get stuck in narratives that are eventually proven to be false, because that would mean you have to change your way of thinking. And change and repentance is the same thing. So, what I want to do is prove my point here. We'll go ahead and get started with Deuteronomy 28. Now, in Deuteronomy 28, Moses tells the people about the blessings and the cursings. Right here in verse 1, it says, "And it shall come to pass, if you hearken diligently unto the voice of Jehovah your Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command you this day, that Jehovah your Elohim will set you on high places above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, if you will hearken unto the voice of Jehovah your Elohim." And then, of course, all these blessings, you see. Then the curses for disobedience. But it shall come, verse 15, "But it shall come to pass that if you will not hearken unto the voice of Jehovah your Elohim, to do all these commandments and his statutes which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you." Then he goes through a list of all these curses, including pestilence and inflammation, the sword, all sorts of horrible things. And he goes on and on and on. Now, even down here in verse 58, "If you will not observe to do all the things, all the words of this Torah that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and fearful name." Folks, I have to go to Strong's Concordance now, because once again, King James Version has inserted a lie. It is not the Lord thy God. That's not what it is. Jehovah Elohim. "But you may fear this glorious and fearful name, Jehovah Elohim." And then Jehovah will make your plagues extraordinary, and the plagues of your seed great plagues of long duration, sore sicknesses of long duration. Moreover, he will bring upon you all the disease of Egypt, aka the disease of the third world, which you were afraid of, and they shall cleave unto you. Also every plague and every sickness that is not written in this book of Torah, them which Jehovah will bring upon you until you are destroyed. And you shall be left few in number, whereas you were once as the stars of heaven for the multitude, because you would not obey the voice of Jehovah your Elohim. And it shall come to pass that as the Jehovah rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so Jehovah will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to nothing. And you shall be plucked from off the land where you go to possess it, the land of Israel. And Jehovah shall scatter you among the people from one end of the earth to the other. The implication is this will be done by land, but if we read further, it will also be done by sea, as we will see in just a minute. And there you shall serve the other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, even of wood and stone. And among these nations you will find no ease, neither shall the sole of your foot have rest, but Jehovah shall give you a trembling heart, a failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And your life shall hang in doubt before you, and you shall fear day and night. You will have no assurance of your life. In the morning you will say, would Elohim that it were evening, and at evening time you will say, would Elohim that it were morning. For the fear of your heart wherewith you shall fear, and for the sight of your eyes which you shall see. And Jehovah shall bring you in back to Egypt again. And I will say something here about that. I have learned that my ancestors were among those who were taken back to Egypt. Again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke to you. Yes, they went back to Egypt in ships, and then on ships they sailed to North Africa and eventually to Spain. My ancestors. You shall see it no more, and there you will be sold to your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no one will want you. Okay. That happened, folks. And for those of you who say it's something to happen in the future, again, you are mad. You are delusional. There is no help for you. Now, I talked about the regathering of Israel will be done by air travel and speedily. Before I go to Isaiah 60 and verse 8 and Matthew 24 and verse 31, let me go to and finish up the words of Moses. In chapter 30. What happened? This thing, the wheel is just spinning around and round. Well, I'll try another window, see if anything happens. I've got nothing. Okay, I finally got it back. And it shall come to pass in verse 1, when all these things that are come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you, and you shall remember them among all the nations where Jehovah your Elohim has scattered you. Then you shall return unto Jehovah. There's no ifs about it here, folks. And you shall obey his voice according to that all I command you this day. There's no if you shall obey. No, they will. You and your children with all of your heart and with all your soul. They will. Then Jehovah, because Jehovah will return your captivity and have compassion upon you. And Jehovah will return and gather you from out of all the nations where Jehovah your Elohim has scattered you. And if any of yours be driven in the outmost parts of the horizon of the sky, okay, that's what it should read, the sky. Look, I'll show you. Strong's Concordance. This is why I talk about sky travel a lot. Utmost parts of the sky. There it is right there. S-K-Y. Do you see sky? Well, I most certainly do. Okay. So the utmost parts of the sky would be as far as the horizon takes you, north, south, east, and west. From there, he will fetch you and gather you. And Jehovah your Elohim will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will do you good and multiply you above your fathers. Now, Moses said, okay, in the cursings that they would be almost brought to nothing, almost completely exterminated, whereas they were once multiplied as the stars and as the sand of the sea. But here he says he's going to multiply you more than above your fathers. And Jehovah your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Jehovah your Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul, so that you might live. And then Jehovah your Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies, on them that hate you, those which persecuted you. Now, as I have pointed out many, many times, Paul in Romans 11 warned the Romans not to persecute the branches of Israel. But they disobeyed the words of Paul, the only apostle to the Gentiles. They didn't have to disobey, but they did. So now the only thing that's left for Christian Europe, for Rome, for Europe, for Western civilization is all these plagues that were written in Deuteronomy 28 to be poured out upon them. Now, as I just showed you, Deuteronomy 30 points out sky travel. All right? Now, let's go to Isaiah 60 and verse 8. Starting in verse 1. Arise and shine, for thy light is come, the glory of Jehovah. See that? Not the Lord, Jehovah. That's the Father. Is risen upon you. And it should be again. Look, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness to people. What people? Well, it's not on Zion. Who then is it on? By default, it's upon the Gentiles. But Jehovah shall arise upon you, and his glory shall be seen upon you, Zion. And the Gentiles will have no choice but to come to the light of Zion, because they have no light. They're full of darkness. And their kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes round about. Look, they're all gathered themselves together. They come to you. What are they doing? They're bringing your sons and your daughters from afar. Why? Because a horrible plague has hit them. And the only way to alleviate it is to bring the sons and daughters of Zion back home. And we see right here in verse 5 that the multitude, the murmuring, roaring crowd, the haters of Israel, the haters in the Mediterranean Sea, will be not converted, but overthrown. Hafak is overthrown, to turn over, to overturn. Turned back, turned aside, turned over. And the wealth of the Gentiles will be yours. The wealth of the Goy. I know there's people out there who really hate it when I use that term, but get used to it. And of course, then by land, multitudes of camels, dromedaries of Midian Ephah, all of they from Sheba, that would be down in the Arabian Peninsula, are going to come and bring their gold and insight. Yeah, because there's a lot of gold in the Arabian Peninsula. Bring it over. It belongs to Jehovah now. Bring it. And even they will show forth the praises of Jehovah. The flocks of Qatar as well. And the people of Nebaioth shall minister unto you, and they will come with acceptance on my altar, and I will glorify my house and my glory. Then it says right here in verse 8, and I have gone over this time and time again, and made fun of Darby and Schofield because of their inability to understand Scripture, that there will one day be sky travel. Who are these that fly? Okay, so the word is oof, and it means to fly. All right? They fly as a cloud, or in the clouds, or in the heavenly portion where the clouds are, like doves to their windows. They are in the coastlands that wait for me. What coastlands? Well, not only the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea, but also the coastlands of Tarshish. Now, Tarshish is on the coastlands of the Atlantic. And their ships, which helped scatter the Jews and all Israel beyond the Mediterranean Sea, will gather them back, and they're going to be first. First, to bring your sons from distant lands, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of Jehovah your Elohim, to the Holy One of Israel, because he has now glorified Zion again. The sons of strangers shall build your walls, and their kings shall minister unto you. For in my wrath I smote you, but in my favor will I have mercy on you. Therefore your gates shall be open continually, and they shall not be shut day nor night, so that men might bring unto you the wealth of the Gentiles, the Goi, and that their kings might also be brought. Okay. Because any nation and any kingdom that will not serve you, Zion, shall perish. Those nations shall be utterly wasted. Well, we know that there are going to be nations that will not serve him, and they will be utterly wasted. We read about them in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Gog, Magog, all the nations listed there. And also in the chapter 39, it talks about he's going to send the fire on them and those who dwell carelessly in the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea, aka Roman Europe. Right here, verse 14. And the sons also of them that afflicted you shall come bending, bowing down to you, and those who despised you, those who despised the Jews, shall bow themselves down at the soles of your feet. Why? Because they worship at the synagogue of Satan, Gentiles. This morning, as I'm speaking, worshiping at the synagogue of Satan in their Sunday worship of Ishtar and Baal. Haters of the Jews. Rejecting the everlasting covenant. I think I will do that in another video. And they will call you the city of Jehovah. They will be forced to. The Zion of the Holy One of Israel. They won't do that now. Oh, they will, though, or die. Whereas you have been forsaken and hated for over 2,000 years, so that no man went through, I will make you an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations, and you shall suck the milk of the Gentiles, of the Goi, and you shall suck the breast of kings, and you shall know that I am Jehovah, am your Savior, your Yahshua. And your Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring gold. You bring brass, he will exchange it for gold. You bring iron, he will give you silver for it. You bring wood, he will give you brass for it. For if you have nothing but stones, he will give you iron, and I will make your officers, your police officers, peaceful, and your exactors will be righteous. Violence shall no more be heard in your land, wasting nor destruction within your borders, but you will call your wall salvation. You will call your walls Yeshua. Yeshua? Yes. Because Yeshua means salvation. Yehoshua means Jehovah is salvation. Walls will be called Yeshua. And your gates will be called Tehillah, praise. Your son The sun shall no more be your light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give her light unto you, but Jehovah shall be to you an everlasting light, and your Elohim your glory. Your suns, figuratively speaking, shall no more go down, neither shall your moon withdraw itself, figuratively speaking, because Jehovah will be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning will come to an end. Now, the Gentiles today think that the Jews are cursed forever, or the devil's children will go to hell. That is an absolute falsehood authored by the devil himself. The prophet Isaiah says that the days of the mourning of Zionists are going to come to an end. Period. Your people also shall all be righteous. They will inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the work of my hands. Why? So that I might be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, Jehovah, will hasten it in its time. Matthew 24, verse 31. Verse 31. Let's see. I'm going to go to King James. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. What days? That's when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. How do I know that? I'll show you in just a second. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. Just like the day when he was crucified. And the stars, meteors, shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, in the sky. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn. Why? Because they will believe that he's the Antichrist, as they say. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud of the sky with power and great glory. Then what? And then he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. Paul says Israel is Jehovah's elect for the patriarch's sake. It is written in Romans 11, verses 25 through 27 to 28, if you care to look. From the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. Now, we just saw in Deuteronomy 28, verses 63 through 68, that they were going to be scattered by land and sea, but we see here, and we see in Isaiah 60 and verse 8 proves it, that it will be, the gathering will be sky travel. By airliners. You see, folks, it was prophesied in Daniel that knowledge would be increased, and mankind in the last days, it would be, let's see, increase with knowledge. Is it Daniel 12? Let's see. Or is it Daniel 11? Let me find out. It is in Daniel 12. I don't know why I didn't see it. Well, we'll start in verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which stands up for the children of your people. That would be Israel. There shall come upon a time of trouble upon the earth, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that day. What day is that? We'll find out here in just a minute. And at that time your people shall be delivered. So it's not the time of the tribulation for Israel. That's when the time of Israel's tribulation ends. So by default, then, the tribulation is going to be upon the Gentiles, because at that time Israel is going to be delivered. Everyone that shall be found written in the book, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that shall be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. What's happening at the time of the end? Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. In order for people to run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased, you have to consider that knowledge will be increased more than it had been before, making it easy to run to and fro. Let's just make sure that we don't miss anything here. To go or rove about quickly, go eagerly to and fro quickly. Well, there was no means of transportation back then to go quickly to and fro on the earth. We live in that time today. It's a day like no other. Now, knowledge multiplied. Knowledge. Skill. You see? Skill and workmanship. The skill and workmanship has made man to have the ability to fly. And this right here says not to be increased, but to be multiplied. To become much, many, or great. Beyond the comprehension of the ancients, you see. That's when this is going to happen. The time of the end, you see. All right. So we go Matthew 24. I think, was I there at Matthew 24 and verse 31? I'm not sure. If not, I think I was, verse 31. So this event is going to happen when there's so much knowledge on the earth that the elect that were scattered to the four winds, as we read earlier in Deuteronomy 28, verse 63 to 68, are going to be gathered back from one end of the sky into the other. And it will be at a time when, right about the same time, there is going to be a war in Israel. As I pointed out before, it appears that in Zechariah, this is Zechariah 2 right here. Before I go to Zechariah 9, I will talk about this. Verse 6, it says, Ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, says Jehovah. For I have scattered you abroad to the four winds. Well, he's going to gather him back from the four winds, you see, says Jehovah. Deliver yourself, O Zion, you that dwell with the daughter of Babylon. Yeah, the people that hated you. Who's that? Western civilization. For thus saith Jehovah of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations, which murdered, raped, and pillaged you. Who did that? Rome, Paris, Brussels, Berlin, London, Moscow, Kiev, you name it, they did it. Which spoiled you, because he that touches you has touched the apple of his eye. Look, I will shake my hand upon them. He's going to beat them down with his fist, he says. And they will be a spoil to their servants. Yeah, just like Isaiah 60 says. And you shall know that Jehovah of hosts has sent. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I am come, and I will dwell in the midst of you again, saith Jehovah. And many nations will ally themselves to Jehovah in that day, and they shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of you, and you shall know Jehovah of hosts has sent me unto you. And Jehovah shall inherit Judah as his portion in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Be quiet, all flesh, before Jehovah, because he is raised up out of his holy habitation. So, yes, it will take, because of the millions and millions of people, it's not going to happen overnight. It can't happen overnight. There are not enough airliners in this world to make it happen. As I said in my previous video, it's probably going to take a year, because the day of redemption is like a year. It says a year of recompense. The acceptable year of Jehovah. So it appears it'll be a year. And it also appears that the nations furthest from the earth are going to act quickly to help make it happen. The Americas. And then there are others who will challenge the sovereignty of the new king in Jerusalem, and they will be destroyed. Clearly says in Isaiah 60, they will be the murmurers of the Mediterranean Sea will be overthrown. Anyway, I will stop here.